Joining us now with live updates from Virginia and Washington, we have with us Gauri Dwivedi and Alistair D'Souza. Alistair, thanks so much for being so patient. I know it's a long night ahead for both of you. But Alistair, in terms of Trump's winnability, take us through where things stand as we speak right now. I know it's a long night ahead, but as things stand currently, how hopeful is Trump and Trump's team of actually winning back the White House?
That's the million-dollar question, Parameshwar. We're all waiting on that, as you've just broken that news just moments ago about that tweet from Trump claiming potential fraud in Pennsylvania. Now, I'm actually in Virginia, and it's pretty much considered a blue state, pretty much. It's gone to the Democrats about in 4 times in the last 4 election cycles. Biden has won here by 10 percentage points. In 2020, Kamala Harris is poised to win here by 5 percentage points. So why am I telling you this? Well, because the Republicans have already sown those seeds of doubt, likely laying the groundwork of saying that there could be potential fraud. So it's not a battleground state, but it could become a battle after the battle. Now, for example, you have a Republican governor here. He's managed to convince the Supreme Court to purge about 1,600 names from the ballot. Many of the people who've seen this say that there was no need to do that because many of these 1,600 people were not non-citizens. They simply did not have the right documents to prove that they were citizens, maybe an old driver's license and so on. So many saying that this could potentially be a place where lawsuits would be filed. And if you look at New Mexico way back in 2020, Trump filed a bunch of lawsuits there despite the Democrats, despite Biden winning by a huge margin. So that's the basic brief about Virginia and as far as what Trump goes. And before I hand it back to you, Parameshwar, I need to draw your attention to where I am. I'm at a watch party. There are going to be lots and lots of watch parties across the U.S., across D.C. as well. But this one is kind of special because we're talking about an Indian American likely to make history tonight by becoming the first Indian American congressman from the East Coast. Now, The Economist magazine actually says that his odds are pretty good, 98 to 100. So looks likely that he might win here, an important contest for him. And of course, when that party starts and he gets here, we're going to have him on air as well. Back to you, Parameshwar.
And perhaps be on the edge of history as well, Alistair. We're going to be troubling you through the course of the night. Let's go across to Gauri for a quick update from Washington, D.C. now. Gauri, we are aware both the Trump and Harris campaigns have lined up lawyers in preparation for potential legal challenges over these election results. But now Trump has come out and said that there are massive cheating claims in Philadelphia. You're in Washington, D.C. What's the mood there?
In fact, I am at Harvard University, Parameshwar, where Kamala Harris will hold her watch party. Behind me is the long queue of people going inside to attend that party. Predominantly, one can see a lot of students, a lot of college staff, professors going inside to the watch party. The reason for that is Kamala Harris is an alumni of this university, which is why the watch party is happening here. In the event that she turns out victorious in these elections, she wants her victory message, the first message as the president-elect, to be at her alumni and university, predominantly dominated by the African-American community, sending a powerful message to her community, to America, and of course to the world, that America is embracing its diversity, both racially as well as on the gender aspect. So that's where I am right now, and I think over the course of the next 3 to 4 hours, hopefully we'll have some clarity as to whether the victory party here, whether the victory party will take place here or all the way in Florida. But as we speak about the 2 aspects that you mentioned, Parameshwar, very important, which is that are we looking at potential lawsuits and major legal trouble going into this election? Well, the first claims that have been made by Donald Trump have in fact been rebutted both by the Philadelphia district attorney as well as the county commissioner, who happens to be a Republican. He himself said that as of now, there's absolutely no claim, no base to any of these claims that have been made by Donald Trump. But the sense one gets is Philadelphia saw record voting in this election. Record. In fact, some of the visuals that came in the last couple of hours showed that queues were going up for 2 hours, if not more. And that indicates that if there is such high voter turnout in Philadelphia, a city that is 43% Black American, then it probably sends some sort of an early message. As I said, probably sends some sort of an early message to the Trump campaign, which is why we saw what really came out right now as a baseless allegation. But through the evening, we will know whether we're going to see more of that, or hopefully this election result will go without much drama, without any legal trouble.
Well, many, Gauri, would argue that the word Trump and drama are compatible, but voters, are they worried about election violence in Washington, D.C., where you are?
That's a very good question, Parmeshwar, and something that I've been asking ad nauseum almost to everybody I've met. And the one thing that they did say is that in 2020, when Donald Trump, when the whole issue and around January 6 took place, President Trump was still there. He was in office for about 70-odd days after he lost the election. So he was still the most powerful man and leader of the free world. That isn't the case this time around. He is an ordinary American citizen exercising his right to contest. So to that extent, the chances of anything significant happening this time around are very low. But again, those are just probability chances. In Washington, D.C. itself, a lot of movement has already taken place. National Guard has been mobilized in the event something happens this time around. But as I said, most people seem to suggest, or at least hope, that it is going to be, the chances of that happening are very, very less this time around.
Gauri, thanks so much for joining us with that live update. We will, of course, be reverting to you for regular updates from Washington, D.C. For now, let me also rope in to decipher the exit polls. We have with us Alex Terraccio. Alex, thanks so much for making time for us on NDTV. Voters are worried about election violence. This is what early exit polls indicate. In fact, just under 3/4 of those asked, they say they felt democracy was very or somewhat threatened in the United States.
It's a very high number. That's true. I'm curious about that as well. I've seen in other exit polls that voters are saying that democracy is relatively high on their list of issues of top priority. If you add up the voters who care about democracy and the voters who care about abortion, it adds up to relatively what Harris's voter share is coming in at. And so the 75% figure struck me as strange. I haven't had time to dig into that poll, but I am curious what went into it. It's certainly not possible that those are all Democrats. That's too many. And so I wonder how many Republicans are in there and what people are interpreting when they say that democracy is their top issue.
Also, Alex, there's been a lot of talk about Kamala Harris's campaign's struggle with black voters lately. Can you lay out what the struggle looks like in terms of what the polls are saying? Are we talking about black people leaving the Democratic Party en masse?
No, we're not talking about that. I think it's more of a question of turnout. Kamala Harris has struggled more than Joe Biden did to get black voters to turn out and to express enthusiasm for her campaign, and certainly more than Barack Obama, where that was a high watermark for the Democratic Party. I think the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing more to appeal to black voters, particularly black men. And the shift in the party is almost exclusively from black men. In the polling that I've seen, when it's 30% support for Donald Trump and 70% for Kamala Harris, that's among men, and it's 10-90 for women. And so this is more a story about gender than it's necessarily a story about race.
In fact, Alex, we have the latest numbers out as well. It seems that currently, as per the early leads, 19 states are going to Trump and 3 to Harris. That seems like a bit of a red footprint at the moment on the US map with the Democrats in minority. I also want to get into one of the narratives we've seen this election cycle, Alex, and that's this flip in the parties when it comes down to education. One of the narratives that we've seen emerging is that Democrats are now the party of those with college degrees. So your lawyers, your doctors, and Republicans are more the party of the working class. So your blue-collar workers, maybe without a college degree. I'm trying to make sense of the dichotomy here, because here you have the Republican nominee, your front runner, wasn't really born without a silver spoon, and he's not ideally working class either. Help us understand how this is playing out.
We're in the middle of a political realignment that's been ongoing for some time. I think Donald Trump has accelerated that, but it'll continue to happen when he's gone. It used to be that college-educated voters were exclusively won by the Republican Party. That has been shifting, and now if you are highly educated, if you have a degree, you are more likely to be a Democrat. It's not overwhelmingly so, but you are more likely to vote Democrat. And meanwhile, the white working class are finding that they're throwing their lot in with the Republican Party. That's shifting across the country. That's shifting across racial groups. That's shifting across genders as well. And so education is absolutely one of the major fault lines in the parties today. And I expect to continue to see it move.
Well, also apparently through the first projections, I must inform our viewers that Harris is currently projected to win Vermont, but Trump is currently projected to win Kentucky. Alex, we're also yet to see the numbers play out, but do we know why Trump has been able to peel away some of the black voters? What are the factors there?
I think he's mostly peeling away black men. And if you're a black man, then the message from Kamala Harris is not appealing to you. Those messages are primarily, she will maintain your right to get an abortion, and Donald Trump is a fascist. That is not a winning campaign message. You can drag down another political candidate by calling him names, by denigrating them. Every candidate does that, so what she's doing isn't special. But what's remarkable is that she's made it the centerpiece of her campaign. Typically, policy is more of a top issue, and in an era where inflation in the economy and border security are voters' top concerns, I don't think that appealing to voter groups by calling the Republican Party nominee a fascist is a winning message, particularly among black men.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us and helping us decipher the data. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when more projections come in. I'd also like to now introduce David K. Johnston, who joins us, who's a political strategist, gun control expert. Chika Hamilton's on the broadcast with us. We also have with us Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and Jennifer Kelly, who's a Republican strategist. Let's go straight across to Mr. Vickery first. Sir, are you hopeful that Kamala Harris is now going to be taking the reins for the White House, or could things still be completely different by the end of the night?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that today has been a great day so far for democracy. I voted yesterday, my wife voted today, and I'm sure people in India who have the opportunity to vote in a democracy feel the same pride that I do at people being able to go and make their choices. And with relatively few exceptions, things have gone smoothly. I think that the tweet that you indicate on X or about Trump saying that there's some sort of massive fraud in Pennsylvania, which has been completely debunked, as were his claims that he actually won in 2020, debunked by Republicans as well as Democratic judges. I think that that shows that he's really worried about Pennsylvania, and he's laying the groundwork to try to contest what is happening there. I don't think that he would have put out that kind of tweet unless if he didn't think that Kamala was in the lead in Pennsylvania. So I think it's been a great day so far, but the hard work is going to begin after the votes are in. It'll be hard work in defense of democracy. Either way, I think that if Kamala, Vice President Harris wins, then you're going to see more of the same thing that you saw in 2020.
But Mr. Vickery, you know, the average American, they seem more skeptical about how Kamala Harris has fared recently. Do you agree and do you echo the same skepticism as the average American when it comes to, let's say, policy issues of the economy?
Well, I think that former President Trump has been very adept at painting a completely untrue picture of what's going on with the U.S. economy. The fact is, we came out of a pandemic in not good shape, but in much better shape than if we hadn't spent money to keep people employed. There was some inflation involved, and that's a problem, but that is coming down. But the picture he's been able to paint for people is that they were much better off under him. The statistics do not bear that out, but he's been able through his demagoguery, to convince many people that somehow the United States is in complete decline economically. The facts don't bear that out, either in job growth, in GDP growth, and as I say, inflation is coming under control, but it is the inflation that people see that that is at the grocery store, if you will, and he's been able to use a demagogue's approach to that to convince people that they were much better off. The fact is, we've come in for a soft landing when many economists were saying that we were headed for a certain recession.
Yes.
And so I think President Biden and Vice President Harris ought to get some credit for it, but that is an issue here. But as you've seen,
we'll have to wait and see if that translates into a victory for Kamala Harris by the end of tonight. Let's also rope in Mr. Johnston at the moment. The average American does seem more skeptical about Kamala Harris and how she's fared as per latest polls, but here she is running against a twice impeached, historically unpopular, convicted felon former president, and it's still a toss-up. But at the moment, Trump is projected to win Kentucky and Indiana, and Kamala Harris is projected to win Vermont. These are both reliable gains for both candidates, right?
Yes, there are really only 7 states that are in play, possibly an 8th, Iowa, and they will decide the election. California and New York are going to go for Kamala Harris. Louisiana and Mississippi are going to go for Donald Trump. And at the moment, we have no idea the outcome. Now, Donald is out there already, as I predicted months ago he would be, asserting that there's cheating going on already, asserting that they've had to have heavy police presence in Philadelphia, which is completely untrue. And the American TV networks have been running live shots showing that that's not the case. But that's how Donald, whom I've covered since 1988, when I wrote way back then he might become president of the United States in 1988, that's how he operates. He is a con artist. He's a lifelong career criminal, and he has conned millions and millions of Americans into believing he's a business genius. He's not. He's a cash extractor of enterprises that he gets his hands on with borrowed money, none of his own money. He squeezes them until there's nothing left, and he drops them. And he has a long history of cheating governments, cheating workers, investors, colleagues, that I've documented from public records all across his career. And of course, he's now a convicted felon, 34 felonies, and he's facing 3 more criminal trials in the near future. 3 weeks from today, I expect that he will be sentenced to prison in New York State for the first 34 of the crimes he's been convicted of.
Well, we'll wait and see how this plays out. Let's also rope in Shikha Hamilton at the moment, who's a gun control expert and an activist with United Against Gun Violence. Shikha, it's no surprise Trump has actually come out and said that the NRA is his best friend. Are you hopeful of how tonight plays out?
I'm very hopeful tonight. It's a great day in America. Anytime there's an election, free and fair election in America, it's exciting. This has been a groundbreaking election by Kamala Harris, leading the way. I have volunteered on elections for 41 years. And I have never seen the kind of ground game that I'm seeing in the past several months. Volunteers are out there knocking on doors, thousands of doors in the swing states. And it's going to be an exciting night.
Do you believe Kamala Harris actually has something different to offer than Joe Biden?
Kamala Harris, well, I think, of course, she's a different human, but she comes with a perspective. She's the daughter of immigrant parents, first of all. So she comes with a different perspective. And the fact that she is a woman of color representing the South Asian community as well as the Black community. And she has been ingrained in both communities. And that is America. America is made up of people that are children of immigrants. I mean, we're all immigrants, right? But she has lived the American dream. She grew up middle class. Nothing was handed to her. Her mother worked hard as a single mother. This is what the American dream is truly about. And that's what she represents.
Right.
I love Joe Biden, so I'm not taking anything away from him. She's just bringing hope and inspiration for Americans and Indian Americans. I'm an Indian American. My daughter is half Black, half Indian, like Kamala Harris. So she inspires her. And the next generation is ready for this president.
In fact, many say the United States is ready for its first female president. Mr. Johnston, how have we seen the dynamic between education, class, and politics play out this election in the United States?
Well, the Democrats who are traditionally the party of unions and the working class, have done a very poor job for about 50 years of appealing to union members. Now, some of this is wrapped in a race. There are a number of unions in the United States, particularly construction unions, that work very hard to make sure only white people, especially white men, are able to get jobs in those fields. And because they're unionized, they pay well. So they are, in fact, seen by many people as the party of the educated class. One of the interesting things about the support for Trump is that his policies literally take money from those in the bottom 90% of the income stream and redistribute them to people at the very, very top, the billionaire and centimillionaire class. I wrote a series of best-selling books about how this was going on before Trump came along, but he then ramped this up, and he promises to ramp it up more. So it's very surprising. Now, at every rally, Donald says, we love the poorly educated. And part of the reason for that is poorly educated people are treated badly in America, in the news media, in advertising, and everywhere else. So he's trying to get them to feel that he cares for them. But his history is one of cheating workers, abusing workers. He said recently that he hates a number of work rules. And in fact, in one of the earlier campaigns, he said Americans are paid too much money. Wages are too high. Sort of the thing you might expect from a boss who doesn't care about his employees.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. It's going to be a long, exciting, thrilling night ahead. 7 swing states will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States in January. And their polling averages are all within the margin of error. But in an election this close, small constituencies really matter. I must inform you that at the moment, CNN has projected that Kentucky and Indiana is going to Donald Trump, and Vermont is going to Harris. Harris stands at 46% favorability as opposed to Donald Trump's 42%. Non-stop coverage carries on NDTV right after this very short break.